let's see if we can cover the basics of trading psychology, which, if it took a million sessions, we still wouldn't finish it. So let's just cover the basics and cover the no fluff side of it. Okay, so let's see what actually happens after you found the trade and you've entered the trade. And now this is the third step of the process, which is, we'll just call it post click, pretty much after the click, which is really when their brains don't be quiet. It's actually when the work is over. The hard work is over here. But for some, for most, this is where the pain even begins after the click. Okay, and unfortunately, this is actually the only part that matters. This is the time where I can tell you that all the previous videos and even all the technical analysis and the entries are irrelevant, and they won't be of much help if you don't understand this part. The part that what? The part that actually matters. Okay. Now, unfortunately, where's all the cool kids? They're in the technical analysis world, maybe even entry analysis, all the technical side of things. What's the latest, coolest indicator? And this is really not where the focus is. Maybe these kids, they give it a little 5-minute section, but this is actually the stuff that matters. But let's see how we can explain this to the Ideogram community in a very simple way. Let's start off with a math question. 1 plus 1 equals. Now, here's the thing about this. There's a lot of neuroscience behind this, but you believe that it's 2. That's without a doubt, you believe that the answer to that is 2. We'll get back to this later. Let's look at these laws of the land, we're going to call them. Okay, consider this like gravity. Okay, number one, anything can happen at any time. So in the markets, in life actually as well. But anything can happen at any time. Now, do these kids believe it? Just like they believe what? 1 plus 1 is 2. Now, let's think about this. If somebody takes a buy and then the price goes against them, so they buy more, and then it goes against them more, and they buy even more, and then it goes against them even more, and they bet everything. Does this trader, if you want to call him a trader, believe that anything can happen at any time? In fact, this trader actually believes the opposite, which is one thing. He believes that one thing will happen now, okay, which is maybe this. Okay, so maybe they say it in words, but we don't really care about words. We care about action, results, what happens in the end. Someone who does these kinds of actions, which is pretty much they pyramided a loser. The worst thing you could do is add to a loser and bet it all on one idea, okay? But somebody who just does a very famous dumb mistake like this, temporarily they did not believe that, well, anything can happen at any time. They did not believe that, what? It can continue lower. And maybe they got a million reasons why. Well, last time it didn't go that far. Well, a million reasons. But for that microsecond. They didn't believe that, which is why they took this action. So that's just one way that this can manifest in a disaster. If you really don't believe this, like you believe 1 plus 1 is 2, without a doubt. Okay, let's look at law number 2. Every trade zone or reaction to a zone is unique, and I like to say uniquely unique because it's impossible. I never seen two of them the same. It's every one is unique in its own unique way. Okay, but if you actually believe that, then let's say as you go along on your trading journey and take trade 1 and 2 and 3, and every week and month take your trades, well, you're gonna go across your trades and have a sample size of trades in a series. Okay, but maybe if you're a newbie, you may start off with that first trade is a loss, and maybe the second and the third, and maybe even the fourth. Here's the point. What does the average brain assume on this one? Also, maybe a loss because the previous were losses. Well, they're assuming that every trade is the same and not unique. And they're also assuming not anything can happen. This to be a winner is the last thing on their mind. It's probably impossible and they'll never take it. And unfortunately, what do you guys think? Based on the laws of probabilities, we're getting closer and closer to a winner, especially if this has been going on for a while. Okay, but that's where most kids go home. But maybe you scale back and you stay with it and you keep at it, like we tell them. Okay, there's obviously the other side of things is a winning streak, which may be more dangerous. They may assume that the next one is gonna be a winner assumption. But again, if they assume this one will be like these, then they don't believe every trade is uniquely unique and it can be any outcome. Okay, and so what do? Superman over here. Maybe they double down and bet it all. And what do we say, especially if this has been going on for a while? You're getting closer and closer to what? To maybe the loss. So let's think about this. The one they double down on is the loss, unfortunately. And this is where this stems from this equity curve. Let's consider this equity curve. We call them the boom and busters. The boom and busters. They boom and bust, and maybe they get a winning streak and boom, and they do some silly stuff like this and bust and stagnation. What do we want, of course, if you're wired properly? Steadily rising equity curve with maybe healthy retracement, just like the market. So hopefully that is crystal clear and understood. So if you don't believe these laws, just like you believe 1 plus 1 is 2, you're going to have problems. Where will they arise? Maybe as you go along your journey, take some losses, take some wins, a series or some streaks. I mean, everyone gets winning streaks and losing streaks, maybe if it's by accident or on purpose, but everyone's going to face these. Okay, now what matters is obviously your reaction after them. Maybe they lose hope after all of it instead of, well, anything, this could be a winner. Anything can happen in every trade. Reaction is unique. These losses have nothing to do with the next trade because the buyers and sellers here are not the same buyers and sellers there or here or there. Every trade is uniquely unique, have nothing to do with each other. That's just crazy talk to say that this one has anything to do with these. They're all different and unique. Hopefully that's understood. If it's not understood, or if it's not applied, well, let's look here to the left and see the emotionally attached trader. How do they see the charts? They don't really see charts or candles, they see ticks. Okay, they see upticks and downticks. And since they're emotionally attached, unfortunately, there's pain and pleasure tied to these. Okay, so focus with me here. Let's consider an emotional buyer. Okay, an emotional buyer is trying to avoid pain and seek pleasure, just like any normally wired human. Now, if they're an emotionally attached buyer, the uptick, pleasure, equity, dollars. How about the downtick? Minus equity, minus dollars. Takes money away, pain for the emotionally attached buyer. So the downtick is neurologically associated with pain, and the uptick associated with pleasure. Now, let's see why this could be a disaster. Let's look at this emotional buyer. Will they focus on the downticks? No, that's painful. Ignore it. Will they focus on the upticks? Yes, pleasure. Will they focus on the downticks? Painful. Ignore it. It's just overextending, guys. Hang on. And they focus on the upticks, pleasure. I told you guys it was just what blah blah. Are they going to focus on the downticks? No, pain. Hopefully you guys get the point. Well, they'll get to a point where the pain is just too much and they wake up and snap out of it and realize maybe after a bunch of losses and they're crystal clear now thinking, because the numbers don't lie in the end. They say, why didn't I just sell? Well, welcome to perceptual blindness, Mr. Trader. Okay, perceptual blindness at its finest. Do you really think you're going to focus and see these down ticks that maybe are pain? You don't want to focus on that. You may even ignore it and hope and pray. So, summary. Down tick, hope and pray. Up tick, pleasure. Told you so. Down tick, hope and pray strategy. Hope and pray strategy until they realize the strategy is just useless. And they say, I coulda, shoulda, woulda. Okay? We cannot be attached to these trades in any way and pretty much associate neurologically with the ticks in the end of the day. Neutral tricks, ticks. It's just neutral. They're just neutral up and down ticks. We don't want to flavor them. You don't want to flavor them because then it becomes you against the market. You're trying to fight something. That's not what the pros do. They don't fight anything. They're with the flow, going with the flow. They're just neutral ticks, and we need to see them accordingly. Okay, let's go on. Maybe some fears that you guys suffer from. And let's see maybe why. FOMO, or Mr. Fear of Missing Out. And I put here fear of the fear of missing out. Now that's how badly wired they are. They have a fear of FOMO. Okay, funny thing with these fears is if you try to avoid them, you find them smack right there in your face. There's no such thing as trying to avoid death, just like it is with many of these losses, missing out, wrong. We're going to go through them real quick, but we have to understand who suffers from this. Someone very specific. Maybe a trader with what? No trading session. Maybe every 5 minutes is their session. Maybe their session is 24/7. Maybe their session is 9 to 5. Okay, what do these kids think? What is trading all about? They think they gotta catch them all. That's not how it works. You have to catch what's in your session. And who cares about outside of it? But maybe focus on a trading session, and maybe you can do either one continuous session, or maybe you can do an hour here, an hour there, hopefully at the right time. Hey, when's the right time? Maybe when all the banks are open. London, New York, everyone's open for business, and the sign out the window says, come on in. Maybe that's a good time to get to work. All right. But like we say about this session thing, put the best trader in the worst session, he'll make money. Put the worst trader in the best session, he's going to lose. Okay. But how about we finally pick, which is they hate to do, is decide, because, oh, well, I was sleeping, and, well, how about you don't sleep and not miss anything? Pick a session and don't sell your soul for the markets, because you're going to realize with less time you can make more. Obviously, you're doing many, many hours and hours for those who are, and if you're still losing, well, there's the results right there. Obviously, you're there all day long strapped to the screen, so aren't you getting rich? So does it work all day long strapped to the screen trading? No, it doesn't. Okay, maybe for Idiot Graham, but not for us. Okay, we have a session, and we don't care about missing out on any of that silly stuff. Next one, losing money. Go send me an industry or a business without business expenses. Send it in the messages so we can go 50-50 split it. I don't know any. Still, I'm searching for a business without expenses. Well, here's the thing about losing money, which is like you're trying to avoid death. I guarantee you're going to lose money. I guarantee you're going to miss out. I guarantee you these things are going to happen, so let's learn to accept them and learn how to deal with them, maybe. Okay? Cost of doing business. Don't you think you have to pay for the losses to get to the wins? Or do you think you have an indicator that can tell me which trades to skip? Okay. The good thing about this, and this is why you have to be real grateful, which many of you are not, for this business, the only thing we can control is actually our business expenses. You can have huge expenses this month. Congratulations, that's your decision. You can have very small expenses. Congratulations, a smart decision. Okay, but nobody tells you what your expenses should be. It's you and under your control. How large or how small is really up to you, and that's a powerful thing. And take advantage properly. Okay, accept these. I don't even consider them losses. Invalidated setups, cost of doing business, whatever it is, however it is, you want to look at it. But what's the point here about these fears? We're trying just to shift from this negative to a positive neuro association. That's all it is. Why is the fat person fat and overweight? Maybe because they neuroassociate negatively with the gym and positively with a bunch of food. Okay? The key to changing anything is in this. How do you maybe change. Well, this overweight person has to associate so much positive pleasure to the gym and to results, and so much pain, unfortunately. Yes, it may get ugly, but you have to see the overweight, the fact of it, as painful. And maybe that gets you to change. Basically, you have to change your neural associations. That's a whole encyclopedia in itself. But that's all we're trying to get at here with these fears. They don't exist. What do they say? FEAR, false evidence appearing real. These are all in your head. It doesn't exist in reality. It's all in your head, unfortunately. But it can make you feel like it actually exists physically, but it's in your head. Maybe you have an increased heart rate. Maybe you have a loss of appetite. Maybe you have increased blood flow to the extremities, preparing for a fight or flight response. But this is your amygdala being hijacked. This is the classic signs of it, and that's when you know you're literally in shock and in fear, and something's wrong. Get away, stop what you're doing. You have to really take a step back, stop what you're doing until you get wired properly. Okay, so losing money, we don't want to even say that. It's cost of doing business. Welcome to reality of it. At least it's your business and you decide how big or small your expenses are. Most businesses, everyone tells them what the expenses are, the legal, the payroll, the minimum wage. They tell you what to pay. Well, in trading, everything's under your control. And that's why they fail, because so much control, they go crazy. All right. But let's look at this next one, fear of being wrong, which I would say is the most powerful. But let's fix it. You have a cell zone and you have a valid, obviously valid footprint, which validated your cell zone. And we are here for the first retest of this valid zone on maybe the micro of our valid macro zone. Now we see a valid signal, maybe even in the deeper half. Should I take it or not? Well, we decide to take it. But we lose. And we're wrong. Are we wrong? Am I wrong for taking it? Well, there's no such thing as right or wrong, unfortunately. Okay, because we have to understand this traffic light. For some of you, if you're not following your system, absolutely, you're going to be wrong all day. But I'm talking about those who have a traffic light. They have a green light system, which just means valid macro zone and a valid micro signal prints there. Now, if that exists and your eyes see it, you're not lying to yourself, but it's a valid zone, and you obviously know how to validate it. You understand what time frame, the macro. You understand how to draw the zone. You understand the signal. If you understand all that and you see it, those are your two green lights. Well, guess what? If you have a valid signal, valid zone, you are, well, it's a valid trade. You're allowed to take it. We're not saying you have to take every single one, but you don't want to be the one who gets wired improperly, where they decide to hesitate and they do not take the trade, valid signal, valid zone. They're scared and they think, and well, I'm already late, and well, so, and it's just dropping by then. So they frozen in shock, and valid signal, valid zone, they did nothing. Okay, that is the one who, unfortunately, if it goes up, they'll feel real smart that they avoided a loss and they were not wrong. They were avoided being wrong. You can't do that in this trading thing. Okay, so whether you take it or not, just accept your decision. And there's no such thing as being wrong. If you followed your system, you did the right thing. It doesn't matter the outcome. I didn't say good day is you make money and a bad day you lose money. I said a good day is where you follow your system. A bad day is where you don't follow your system. It has nothing to do with money. Hopefully Idiot Graham can wake up here. Next one here. Fear of, this one is not that famous, but we're going to call it losing what's floating or leaving money on the table. But I coulda, shoulda, woulda, it went more, and oh man, let's go cry about it together. A simple predefined profit system. What is that? If you don't have this pre-click, well, obviously you haven't taken the course. RBFI trading course, right there. A profit system is just where you know where to get paid. At T1, I'm going to get paid. That's a profit system. Well, that's half of it. So you know where to get paid. Right there at T1, that's my target. I know where. You can't sail out in the sea without knowing where. Get it through your head. At least some kind of target to get some kind of understanding of your risk reward. Okay, but what's the second part we need, which is pretty much ignored, or they decide this way later when it's too late. Exactly how much? So will you close all of it there? Will you close half of it there? Will you close some of it? Will you decide where to get paid and how much to get paid when you get there, if you get there? Key this in your brain and decide on a profit system. Get fancy later on some advanced profit systems, hundreds of pips. And how about you get the basics and get a system? How about, here's a dumb one for Idiot Graham. You take a trade and you use target one, the closest target, and you close all of it there. You just set it at T1. You close all of it there at T1. Congratulations. A to B set, and it either hits the target or it doesn't. Master the fundamentals first. Okay. Let's look at this risk system here. If you don't manage risk, send me the money instead. Let's go to Vegas together and we'll have more fun at least. We'll get some fun out of losing it all. You're going to get pain in the market. You're going to lose it all and pain. So you're paying for pain. Let's wake up here. Okay. As we said earlier, $1,000 and you lose 50%. You have 500. How much do I need to make to get back to where I was, which is 1,000? I gotta make 500 more, which is I have to make 100%. So I need to make 100% just to get back to where I was. Now, smart ones don't dig a hole in the first place. Why? This is not break even. This is called slave labor. You're busting your ass for nothing. So even if you manage to make it and dig out of the hole and gain some confidence, that's slave labor. The smart ones don't do it in the first place. They don't dig the hole in the first place. So maybe what do they do instead of slave labor? Maybe scale back. Maybe they risk 3, they lose 2, they lose 1, they lose half. They don't dig a deep hole like that. Scale back. Why are you keep something saying? The losses are screaming at you. What's wrong if you keep losing and lost? Something's wrong. Scale back. See, or maybe even stop or see what it is. But that's not a sign to keep at it and continue these bad habits, this is a sign to take a step back. You have a wiring problem. Okay, unless you like to work for free and slave labor, that's fine. Risk a whole bunch on the trade, no problem. That's up to you. But the smart ones scale back when they losing, and maybe they're winning, so they maybe hit the gas, and they're losing, so they ease off and brake. The easing and the not easing of the brake and the gas. That's what it's all about, trading. Knowing when to do which. Okay, but these are keys for you guys to absorb and hopefully change, right? But let's look at the next one. Daily loss limit. This is a maximum daily loss. Well, maybe predefine it, the max you're willing to lose on a day. And whether you do it in dollars or trades, but I mean, if you're taking 5 losses in a row, maybe that's you're done for the day, and maybe 10 losses in a row. I mean, maybe you're done for the week. Not maybe. There's something, hopefully it's not a strategy thing, but natural losses. Maybe you're done for the day, 10 you're done for the week, and maybe use some fixed lot sizes. Maybe a couple sizes that you're comfy with, and you don't think much when you unload them, and the market movements don't phase you. There's a comfy lot size for each of you. I wish I could tell you what it was. You know, okay, that lot size you're real comfy with and real accurate for some weird reason, right? And how do we want to unload these? Well, multiple entries, one idea. So we don't want to take a trade on that pair and a trade on that and a trade on that pair and maybe a bunch of ideas and a bunch of trades and it works maybe. That's not what we want. One move goes A to B and multiple safe entries on it. And maybe it works. But this is the style you maybe want to try. Multiple entries, one idea. Maybe your idea is it's going to there. That's an idea. Another idea, it's going to there. Well, multiple entries, one idea, and one pair, one session, maybe that will help. If you can't babysit one pair and get rich off one pair, why are you doing 2, 3, 4, 700, 20? Are you an analyst? You probably are if you're on Idiogram all the time. Just scrolling, wasting time, brain dead. Okay? We're not analysts, we're traders. We trade our one pair. Get rich first and then go on 2, 3, 4, a bunch of pairs. Get fancy later. One move, one pair. Try it out. Try it out. Maybe this is all just wrong and we're crazy. Try it out, see for yourself. Got it? Let's continue. Our final piece here. So how do we change? It would suck if we didn't tell you, right? Well, you have to change the way you think. Okay, maybe you're wired to think properly, great. But those who are thinking terribly, that's how we change, by changing how we think. Now, how do we change the way we think? These are tough questions, okay? Tough answers as well. This is for you guys to dig into. Dig into yourself, see where your issues are, and fix it to work on what matters. You won't regret it. It's about results, and you'll be mad at yourself that it took you this long, and why didn't you do it sooner? So get to it. But how do we change the way we think? Go Google this. Dive into that, okay? How are we supposed to be thinking? supposed to be thinking and wired in a certain way in thinking and probabilities. Okay, so how are we supposed to be thinking in probabilities? How are we born thinking in certainties? You think you love it when you have no idea what's going to happen next? You guys hate that stuff. I don't, but and those wired to think like this in trading, they don't care what happens next. Okay, they've accepted it because it's all probabilities. Let's sum it all up here. Okay. Those thinking in probabilities, they react. They do not predict, like these kids here. A life of pain versus a life of pleasure. They react to what? Valid signal, valid zone. Maybe they react to their trading edge. When the market's screaming at them, valid signal, valid zone. If they can't hear and they're deaf, that's tough. But they react to their edge. These guys predict the outcome. Is it going to go up? Is it going to go down? Okay. How about the outcome for these traders? Is the outcome important? Well, for them, it's a life and death situation. Of course, the outcome matters. If I win, I'm going to have a party. If I lose, I'm going to be miserable. Of course, the outcome matters to them because they're thinking in sure things. Well, all my trend lines, all my indicators said it's going up. So I bought, but it didn't go up. What I predicted and expected didn't happen. Pain, okay? For us and those wired to think like this, the outcome is irrelevant. It does not matter. Who cares? We keep at it. It's not wins and we get crazy and losses we get sad. No, it's pretty boring actually. Keep trading. The outcomes are irrelevant for a thinker wired this way. It may take you years, which it will actually. Well, get a job if you don't have the time. Okay. And our last point here is, how do they think in a series? They think in a sample size. Let me take 5, 10, or 20. These are obviously manual trading. But they think in a bunch of trades and what's the outcome of the series. And here, each trade is what? A roller coaster. Each trade is handled differently. Each trade is another story. Okay, it's a emotional roller coaster torture train. Trade by trade, they get through the week exhausted. Okay, they take each trade as a life and death situation. Okay, emotionally attached, obviously, because they're thinking uncertainties. This trade, everything said it's going down, so it has to go down. Okay, now, this is what you guys are going to work on, which is, needs a million session on this. Amygdala hijacks, perceptual blindness, like we talked about above. Many of you guys are wired negatively for this game. You're wired to think in certainties. Okay, we need to just switch it. We react to our valid signal, valid zone. The outcome is basically everything we said here. And you turn it positive neuroassociative conditioning, and maybe you get a little pleasure out of it and you get off this path of pain. And for our last point is, if you can manage to do all this properly, okay, and think and get wired properly, even if it takes you 5, 10 years, the click that makes a buck is the click that makes you a Milski. It's just the same click, valid signal, valid zone. But if we can do all this, and you believe all this, just like you believe what? 1 plus 1 is 2 at the bottom of your heart, you believe in all this, then maybe you can let the trades play out without even thinking about it, which it may boggle some brains that you're able to let a trade play out. Maybe you let a trade play out just like you go to the grocery store or pull out of the driveway. You don't even think about it. You just let it. You want the summary of the session? Just let it. Let it play out. Even letting it, they don't even do that. Okay? But if we are able to get wired like this and think in probabilities and get wired that way, then you'll be able to let the trades play out. Okay? Take the shortcut. Take a step back. Get the wiring proper. Get the thinking, the way you approach trading, the way you approach your trades, and how you think about this business. It's probabilities. And you need to think that way, and then maybe you'll start finding it. And maybe you'll start entering the deal. And well, you'll find the trade, which is something cheap to buy, something expensive to sell. You'll be able to find it and you'll be able to enter it somehow. A million ways to enter. And the last part, which is you'll let the trade play out to your target. And like I said, the work is over by then. That shouldn't be lifting 100 million pounds. That should be effortless if you're wired properly and thinking in probabilities.